Hi, my name is Daniel Ranells, he, him pronouns. I am New York City raised for over 40 years, and I grew up in Manhattan. And while I was working at the Bronx High School of Science, I moved to the Bronx, and I've been living there and really enjoying the communities there for the past 20 years.
Plus, what impact has Wolf Plus had on you?
Yeah, well, plus I work during the day. My full-time job is the director of programs and operations at the Bronx River Alliance. And I also am a board member and community leader with the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition. And in both areas, both community sets of communities, there are folks with a very diverse background, different spoken languages at home, and I'm a white guy who grew up in Manhattan. So I think it's really been helpful to having me create more space and understanding to listen to folks who have lived in the Bronx for their entire lives and have had a very different experience than the privileged upbringing that I've had.
Yeah, what's the importance of the leadership of women of color?
Empowering women of color in leadership is critical in this day and age because they represent different areas that have been disenfranchised over many years. Thinking about when women got the right to vote, thinking about when people of color got the right to vote, and how long they've been out of the decision-making process. The system's already been rigged against them, just in terms of policies, in terms of culture, and so incorporating their experiences and also they're our mothers. They have children, they have a different perspective on life and on families, and so we really need to kind of swing the pendulum a little more towards leadership from women of color, so that we can adjust the policies and the culture that we've built up over the past decades and centuries.
Very good. So let's bring it to you a little bit, which this may or may not end up in it.
Yeah.
But as a white man, one man who has benefited from privilege, you wouldn't be in the movement if you didn't acknowledge the privilege.
Yeah.
How has that colored your maybe your approach to social justice and the circles that you find yourself in?
Yeah, it's in terms of acknowledging and being aware of my privilege. It's for me been really an act of compassionate listening and really understanding and relating as much as I can, but really understanding what folks of color have been through, what women of color have been through, and acknowledging their expertise. They have that experience, and they can bring that experience in a much more valid way than I can say, well, this is the right answer for you or your family or your community. Like, I can't really give that answer. I can support that answer. I can have thoughtful conversations, again, if it's welcome and wanted. So there's stepping back and listening, and then there's stepping up to be an ally or an accomplice in really shifting and transforming the racist policies and institutions that we have.
Do you think that Well Plus has given you any perspective into that, as you anything that you're embodying in that regard?
Again, going back to understanding, the community here has been one of trust and openness, so I've gotten to really hear at a deeper level the experiences of women of color, of men of color, and folks who identify in different ways, and to understand their experiences, sometimes their trauma, and to understand why they behave in certain ways, why they want certain solutions. So it really, expands my mind and horizon, what's possible, and creates a bond of trust to, that I can bring to other relationships and other conversations. I can listen for understanding and ask questions for clarification, and not make assumptions based on stereotypes and tropes in our culture today.